Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population and with little or no meaningful engagement leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say. Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, is grappling with a perennial housing crisis. The demand for decent and affordable housing far outstrips supply, leading to an astronomical rise in rents. This has resulted in many Nigerians struggling to secure a roof over their heads, with some forced to spend a significant portion of their income on rent. The situation is particularly dire in urban centers like Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, where the cost of living is already high. It's another wonderful episode on your favorite primetime show, Ways. My name remains Osaiwa Mesale, and today we'll delve into the question, should the government regulate rents in Nigeria? Remember, Ways is all about you. You are the why in what are you saying. So be a part of the conversation every single episode, add your voice. And of course, to the discussion, you can head on to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, like, share, and invite your families and friends to watch and follow the show right now. When I open the phone lines, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the conversation for the day. The topic is, should the government regulate rents? Yes, that's the question. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, allow me let you ponder on my quote for today. It's a very short quote. It says, regulations force people to do better. It was from Jay Leno. It's simple. It's a short and simple quote. Regulations force people to do better. So we'll delve into all of this much later. First, let me run off on a break. When I come back, I'll let you in on my news interest for today. Stay with me. Life is made up of moments, some that fill us with joy, others that test our strength. Welcome to Heartlines. This is our space to explore the highs and lows of human connection, the love, the heartbreak, and resilience that shapes our life. From relationships to friendships, parenting to partnerships, and so much more. Every week, we share stories and conversations that define us, navigating love, separations, the struggles of parenting, dealing with anxiety and managing the pressures and stress of life. Real conversations that bring us closer, helping us heal, grow, and connect. So join me Mondays through Fridays at 10 p.m. for Heartlines, the show where we'll connect hearts, have real conversations with real people, one story at a time. Okay, so I'm going to start off with, of course, the story that has been all over social media since last weekend up until now. Still on Natasha Akpoti-Oduaga, the senator representing Kogi. I think, is it Kogi West now or Central? I'm not sure. All right, so Senator Florence Itagiwa went on a TV show and she talked about Natasha's claims and says that it's a sign of weakness. So she says that by the time you contest elections and get to Senate, you have passed that stage of your life of being sexually harassed. You go there to serve and you are equal in that place. And again, it shows weakness. You don't allow it. It says, she now says sexual harassment cannot happen in the Senate. I'm not saying the lady is lying, but when you get to the Senate, you are there as a person, not there as a woman. When asked, of course, if the female lawmaker should remain silent about the harassment from colleague, Itagiwa said that making such allegations at that level reflects weakness. I'd like to ask a question to the former senator. When you say that is this, when you're going into the seat, right, you're going into the Senate, you're going there as a person and not, you're not going there as a woman. Why do we keep advocating for female seats, right? Why do we keep advocating for female seats in our various houses, whether it be at state level or national level? If that sexuality or that identity as a woman is not relevant, at that stage, because the way you say it, it seems like, okay, at that point, we're all people, we're all equal. But every now and again, you hear conversations bordering how we have a lot of underrepresentation in the Senate, right? So why do we have that? Why do we keep on advocating for more women in having seats and all of that when you say that she's no longer a woman, she's a person? That's one question. Secondly, I totally disagree that it is a sign of weakness. If for anything, it's a sign of strength because, again, there are key issues, and this is coming from someone that is always at the, every time, even as little as I am, I go into a man's office, the first thing he wants to do is sexualize me and say, you know what, come to my office, or let's go to a hotel, or let's go and have dinner. And they completely shove aside the proposal or whatever it is that you're submitting to their table, right? It is always a situation. In fact, at some point, I had to ask myself, is sexual harassment or harass me written on my forehead? So I don't think it's a sign of weakness. It is a real issue that always comes out whenever a woman is, especially when that woman is attractive and she's in front of a man. So I don't think it's a sign of weakness, and I think it should be addressed. I don't think it's a sign of weakness. If you say that seats are, are for people, not male or female, then we should stop advocating for female representation in the Senate. Let us all know that anybody that goes there. So we don't need to have a woman. We shouldn't be saying that they should allocate, a particular percentage to women, and so that we have more female representation. So that's what I would say to that story. I don't think it is. If truly there's a sexual harassment case, then it should be addressed. Because every now and again, when women go into rooms and they are trying to discuss something serious and important, they are being sexualized. And instead of you to face the work that they're supposed to be doing, they look at you and they're telling you, meet me in a hotel or do all that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's really, really irritating. Because that is not the thought that I had in my head when I came into your office. And this is why we have a high rise of a lot of young girls going to go and meet their odogus, they call them. Why? Because, again, we have normalized the idea that it is okay for a man to keep on harassing you sexually. I don't think it's a sign of weakness. So I beg to differ. All right, so I'll move on to the next story. Jigawa governor reduces working hour for civil servants during Ramadan. So on Friday, I ranted because I saw a post that just kind of, it blew me off because, well, anybody that knows me knows that there are two things that really disturbs me. If you want to find my trouble, when you touch education or you touch children, you have looked for my trouble. And when the Bauchi state governor had said that he was shutting down schools for 5 weeks. Up till now, Nobody's talking about those things. And I hear that he's not the only state governor doing it. More state governors are doing it. It's totally unfair that you stifle what's it called the child, their ability to be able to learn during that period, all because there is a religious exercise that is going on. I hear you that you want to give, because according to Jigawa State Governor, he's trying to give the workers in Jigawa State time to go prepare, to be able to break their fast and all of that. I hear you, and I understand completely. But the way I understand fasting is supposed to be a sacrificial act. It means that it's not supposed to distort any other thing that you're doing. Some people would even say that nobody around you should even know that you are embarking on a fast, because it's supposed to be a sacred, practice between you and God. So when I keep on saying all of these things, it just helps, it keeps disturbing my mind. We have very, very full-blown Islamic countries in the world. Indonesia is one of them. I have a friend that lives there. If you see her, she dresses like a Muslim. She's, because that is the culture. It's an Islamic country. Yet, some of these things, these nuances that we see in Nigeria, you don't find it there. I am very sure maybe in Saudi Arabia it might be the same thing, But I'm just saying that Ramadan or fasting, whatever it is a personal exercise that brings spirituality between you and your God. I don't think government should keep putting their nose inside what is supposed to be a personal relationship or a personal commitment to your God. I'll leave it there, because you know what? My parents have called me and they've been begging me not to put my mouth inside this religion matter, but I just cannot help it. Because when we keep doing things like this, right, a lot of things have been distorted that we are not. It's because we don't know how to measure what we lose in the process, right? I get it, but you see, if it is a sacrifice, then it means that you are doing it despite the inconvenience. So your normal life and your normal work life should go on regardless. My final story for the day would be Lagos State reaffirms ban on flogging in schools. It upholds counseling. So they are actually setting up some, counseling desk for students, and they're saying that, they do not support corporal punishment, flogging of students and all of that. It's important to emphasize that students are not to be flogged, in any of their public schools. I don't really believe in flogging, right? But I would say that even when I think it was the Commissioner for Education who was talking, he said that things like cutting of grass, please, even cutting of grass, and what's it called? Yeah, you can say kneel down, you can, you can do some other things, but you see that cutting of grass. If the child is unwell and you send the child under the sun to go and cut grass, something else goes wrong, you are also going to be in trouble. I just feel like anything corporal punishment, whether it is flogging, whether it is cutting of grass, whether it's going to go and kneel under the sun and all those things should just completely, be eradicated and expunged. There's a way you can communicate. Children are human beings. You need to be able to appeal to their senses, right? Have conversations. We need to learn how to be intentionally using our words and our and communication, right, to correct some of these nuances, as opposed just every time. I feel like either flogging, punishment, a lot of things is a lazy man's way out, in trying to correct, a child. So in the process, so I feel like it is a lazy man's way out. So, but I'll move on and I'll take a break. When I come back from that break, this rent matter. It's me and landlords this year. I'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word.
Hey, Nepa.
Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we'll analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.
All right, thanks for staying tuned. Now, a new bill introduced in the Enugu State House of Assembly to regulate rent and real estate practices has reignited conversations about Lagos worsening, of course, Lagos worsening housing crisis. Now, the bill, which aims to curb exploitative practices in the housing sector, was introduced last week and has since gained national attention, with Lagos, of course, facing skyrocketing rents and mounting affordability challenges. The bill introduction has led to calls for similar actions in Nigeria's economic hub. Many Lagos State residents have long complained about arbitrary rent increases, excessive agency fees and legal fees, unfair tenancy practices that makes securing accommodation, of course, increasingly difficult. So these are just, to mention a few of the challenges that Lagos State residents are facing. So on one hand, right, if you want to argue for if it is okay for government to regulate rent, some would say that yes, rent regulation would make housing more affordable for low and middle income earners. And some would say that, it will also prevent landlords from exploiting tenants with, of course, exorbitant rent increases. Now, I don't understand how somebody gets to start off a rent. There was a particular place we had lived for I think maybe about 7 years. It had started from a 400,000 rent. It then moved on to like a 600. It moved on to 700. It moved on to 800. And the next thing, from an 800,000 rent, it then just went straight to a 1.8 million rent, right? So I don't understand, how it is possible for us to just sleep and wake up and overnight your rent is at 100%. And when you speak to the tenants, the landlords, they'll tell you, inflation and all of that. So every time these kind of practices happen, I keep on wondering, shouldn't there be a regulation? Shouldn't you have something that says, you know what, you can increase your rentals? Of course, we know that inflation is on the rise and everything is on the rise, but there should be like a standardized increment that happens. You can't just wake up overnight and decide that your rent would be 10 million, right, from a 1 million rent, which is what we see happen in Nigeria, right? Somebody just wakes up and says, without anything, like even improving on any part of the building, right? The building is there, and you just see that. I remember a big auntie of mine, she was running, and this is particularly bad for businesses, right? Because a business person, you're not thinking, I need to own a property. Okay, you're thinking, I'm trying to set up a business. It's a startup. I'm trying to build the business. And you get a property, and you rent that property, and you start to do the business. Of course, there is a long period for the business, the teething period and all of that before it even attains profitability. Now, these landlords, they don't see all of those, right? All they are seeing is that it's like there's patronage, there's this, there's that, and all of a sudden you wake up. So this big auntie of mine was in a particular building, and she was telling me, I was paying, this was many years ago, she was paying, I think, 7 million naira as a rent, for that property. And all of a sudden, the landlord just woke up and said it was going to be 14 million naira or nothing. 100% increment, right? 14 million naira or nothing. In fact, she said, I begged this man to give me that rent for 10 million. And, nothing. He was not bulging that it was going to be 14 million or nothing else. She said she had no choice. Her entire business had to pack up. And this is a media company. Her entire business had to pack up. It was then she didn't realize that, she had a land that she had bought many years ago. And she said, okay, let her just go and even see what is going on in that area, because she had bought the land, acres of land, and she just abandoned it. Only for her to get there and realize that that entire area had been fully developed. Today, the actions of that landlord might have been for evil, but it has pushed her to her, because now, she did not only build a media house, she has a radio station there, she has a TV station there, she has a cinema there, and all of that. But I can tell you the amount of stress and the amount of losses that she would have incurred just by that singular act. So rent control will provide tenants with stability and predictability in their rent payment. So if you really want to check it, we need to be intentional as a government to understand that, I don't know if you know Maslow's law, right? The hierarchy of needs. There's the law. If you look at that picture, right, at the base level for Maslow's law, right, is the things like psychological needs. So breathing, food, shelter, clothing, and sleep. It is a basic necessity for every single human being. Housing is a basic necessity. So if we stay and we say we're not getting that, that ability to predict that, okay, yes, I'm earning 100,000, my rent is maybe 20,000 or something, I should be able to sustain my rent for the next 5 years. But a landlord just wakes up after 2 years and says, your rent is now 80,000 for 100,000 salary. How do you cope? So when you want to argue for whether it is okay for the government to regulate it, I would say yes, because it will help to prevent some of these, excesses from the landlords, right? It will help to reduce, of course, inequality, housing inequality, by making decent housing more accessible to the marginalized communities. Rent also, regulating rent would also reduce financial burden, right, on the tenants. Some landlords at some point, I think it was Governor Fashola that had to put a stop to it. Some landlords at some point, they were asking for 2 years, 3 years rent, when you've not even worked the money. In other clients, what you do is you pay your rent per month. So as you're earning, at the end of the month, as you're collecting your salary, you are setting aside rent, setting aside electricity, setting aside water, and all of those things. But here is the reverse. You've not even started working. You have to pay 2 years upfront. So this would reduce financial burden, right, on tenants when regulations, are put in place. And regulations could also lead to increased disposable income, and economic growth for the tenant. Because now, if, for instance, there is a law that says pay monthly, If you have that money, you can invest that money. It is from your investment, the profit you make from that investment, you use it to service your rent. That gives you some level of stability, right? And you will grow economically as a tenant. So if you go back to Maslow's law of hierarchy of needs, right? It is breathing, food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep. So housing is no longer a luxury. It has never been a luxury. But it's no longer something that the government should be quiet about. We have to be very clear. It is madness what is going on. If you've tried to get a property, especially in Lagos, I don't know about other places. I hear Abuja is also crazy and Port Harcourt is crazy. But if you try to get a property and you see the kind of property, even the property and the money, they don't correlate. I don't understand how these people are thinking. And they'll tell you the inflation. If you check around, you know, what's it called? How do they put the English? What's it called? Go and do your study. You see that, you know, I'm even giving you at a lower price. But no, how can you move somebody's rent from a 7 million to a 14 million overnight? Where do you want the person to get that extra 7 million to pay you? And this woman even begged, say, okay, you know what? Can you make it 10 million? I said no. Similar case that of someone, rent is about 5 million. You increase the rent to 8 million. The person say, okay, please, let's make it 6 million. No. And they just come blanket and say no. So it's either you do it, because they know that there's a deficit, right? It's either you do it the way I've told you to do it, or you just move out of my property. This is what we see all the time. So if you ask me, I would say yes, government has to regulate it. But for those that are arguing against government regulation, one of the, arguments that they will put forth is about market distortion. They say that rent control could distort the market, leading to a shortage of rental property. So it will mean that more people will say, you know what, I know they rent again. Let me just sell off my property, or, you know, keep my property. So that could also be a point to say, okay, let's not regulate it. But I don't think it's a strong enough point, right? Because people, they would say, since I'm not able to invest in the real estate sector and rent my properties and get good money, then there's no point to even invest in that housing sector. So that can also cause deficit. Some other people say that black market and informality, so regulation could drive the rental market on the ground, leading to a rise in the informal and unregulated rentals. So you see all those, you know, shacks where people will do, you know, we still have them regardless, right? But, you know, for argument's sake, another reason they would say that no, it should not be regulated would be that rent control could lead to reduced investment in, of course, maintaining the property and upgrades, right? So, since you say you want to pay 200,000 as rent, no problem. Be living in a slum, be living in a dumpster, right? They will not. So this would give us more low-quality housing. And I would say it's a lie. You see, for every point about this not to regulate, I have a counterpoint, because I have seen horrible. See, there was a particular property I really loved because it met all the standards of what I wanted. But the only sad part about this property was that it was completely run down. And I was saying to the owners of the tenants, or the agent, I said, sir, this property is completely run down. For me to be able to make this property habitable, that I can move into this property, I will need to spend a lot of money, right? Hard-earned money. So who gains in the end? Now you want to use that, madam, now? I say, no. Bring down the rent. Then I will not have an agreement on a, a lease period. So if I am investing a lot of money into upgrading your property, then I should get some bit of, relief to say, okay, yes, but no. So even if you say that rent control could lead to investment in property that they won't have good maintenance or low quality properties, I will tell you it's a big lie, because right now, I don't know about every other place, but in Lagos, some landlords have the effrontery and the boldness and their agents to give you a rundown building, and they call you tons of millions for you to rent those properties because they know that you don't have a choice. Another point some would put forth, or the argument that they'll come forth with, is that regulation could lead to an inefficient allocation of resources, as landlords may prioritize renting to those who are willing to pay higher, which is just but that is what is already happening. So we might as well regulate it, right? Implementing and enforcing rent regulation could also be challenging, particularly in informal settlements and rural areas. And I would say that even for rural areas, where we have these challenges are more in urban areas. Because if you see, however, would I say maybe mud houses or whatever, most of those people in those rural areas, they actually live in their homes. They are those people that will gather their money, buy a land, use their mud block and be doing it one after the other, and they build their properties. So I don't think this affects rural areas, right? I think it's more in urban areas for when it comes to rental, some of the arguments about, how it's going to impact if the regulations are done. I'll go back again to Maslow's law. Housing is the most basic need of everyone. Everyone needs a shelter. And because it's like mass market, right? It's like mass market. Because everybody needs it. It is not a luxury thing, right? Everybody needs a home, a proper, decent bed to lay their heads at the end of the day. It means that any serious government must be intentional about making sure that at least, so we're not even looking for luxury, at least basic housing is provided. And that's why you see leaders of the past, right? You see them doing things like low-cost houses. There are some areas, in different places where they will tell you these are low-cost houses that were built by state governors, that were built by the federal government and all of that, and were allocated, to different people. Because why? They understood. So I don't know where everything just flipped. And now rentals are being left to landlords, their agents. Agents now will tell you, right, give me a 3-year or a 2-year agency fee. I don't understand. Agency fee was supposed to just be a commission. Thank you for helping me find this property. But now they insist on some very, very ridiculous amount. Someone was telling me that he wanted to rent a property for 700,000. The agent told him that this 700,000 that is technically supposed to be a 10% agency fee, that my agency fee is 300,000. So by the time he added agency fee, he added the legal fee and everything, I think everything came to like 1.6 million for a property. So if somebody had 1.6 million, will he even be pricing a property for 700,000 in the first place? Government needs to wake up. Housing has become a big issue. That somebody will just wake up and tell you that this is how much I'm going to rent my property. So you can go, because they know that properties are not available. Imagine if the government is very intentional about providing more low-cost houses. What do you think would happen to this rent? It will automatically crash. We'll take a break because I like to find solutions, right? When we come back from that break, we want to understand what would be the possible solutions, right, to help government regulate rents in Nigeria. And I would love to hear your thoughts.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we will bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we will analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
All right, thanks for staying tuned. Now, if you just tuned in, we're having a question conversation today. We're asking, should the government regulate rents in Nigeria? Do you think they should regulate rents in Nigeria? Please let me hear your thoughts. You can join the conversation, send us an SMS or WhatsApp. You can also call the WhatsApp number 081-803-84663. Our phone lines are also open, 07025007749 or 07014242420. I would really love to hear your thoughts, on rental control. What do you think that the government can do, given that housing is supposed to be the most basic need of the human being, right? So, okay. On one hand, right, opponents claim that rent control should stifle investment in the housing sector and lead to a shortage of rental properties and ultimately harm the very people it aims to protect. That's what somebody is saying. Some are saying, but some are also arguing that it will help to make housing a lot more affordable, and it will reduce the financial burden on the tenants and prevent exploitative behaviors that comes from either landlords, their agents, or their lawyers and all the people that are in that entire ecosystem. I'd love to hear what you think. But, let us look at some things that probably would make rents a bit high. The fact that landlords will tell you that the price of cement, because I've heard this argument several times, they'll tell you that the price of cement is high, and that's why properties are high. They will also tell you that, building materials are high, and that's why properties are high. They will also tell you that, land. Securing the land, the land itself, in itself, it is the real cost. So if these are all the issues, why are we not, as a government, intentionally subsidizing those kinds of things, right? So if people are into, manufacturing of steel, things that helps, or building materials that helps in aiding that a structure comes alive, then those are the places. You see, when we are going into elections or whatever, we need to be clear on the kind of arguments we want to be putting forward, going forward. Don't come and tell me I'll build road, I'll do this, right? How are you making my life better as a citizen? Those are the kind of conversations we need to start having with our leaders going forward. How do we ensure that the price of cement is not high? How do we control the price of lands to ensure that it is regulated? How do we control all of these things? Because in the end, it is all these things that add up that then makes up the price that makes those rental properties extremely high, or or buying a property extremely high. So it is a ripple effect. And if for any serious government that understand that housing is not a luxury, is a basic need, then you must also be intentional about making sure that that housing need is sorted. So we're talking about rent subsidy. Government can also provide rent subsidy, yes. You see this in our petrol, not only petrol we need to subsidize. We can subsidize rent, right? And this is how it plays out. Sometimes, you see, what I said about those low cost houses, it's a form of subsidy. Because sometimes the houses are not as cheap as it is, but because the government have provided mass structures, right? Then they're able to then bring down the cost that the common low-income earner would be able to afford. So this just completely solves that problem. If we increase the housing supply we have in Nigeria today, imagine, just take a picture with me. The government clears an expanse of hectares of lands. They call in some of these, because I've seen some very beautiful designs, architectural designs that people do. They call them low-cost houses. And I've seen them. So imagine you go into partnership with those kind of companies and say, you know what, these houses cannot cost more than 1 million naira. It is possible. And decent homes. I think I have a caller, our first caller for the evening. Kenneth, thank you for calling.
Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. What an interesting discussion topic.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the point is this. there is nothing in this country now that is cheap. That is one thing we should all bear in mind. It is not only housing alone. Our government too, they are wicked. What of fuel for 150, 160 to 1,000, 1,000 plus? What of rice from 25, 30,000 to 120,000? What of probably you want to take an air ticket of 35, 40, 50,000 before to 300,000. So when we are blaming the landlords, remember, most of those houses, most of them that can afford, there are people that can work for years and they're just retired. They buy their crops, they buy a lot of things, and they buy the same fuel and they buy the same food and everything has skyrocketed. So where do you want them? How do you want them to go? It's a general failure from the government, my dear.
Thank you.
If we want to tell ourselves the truth, to tell ourselves the truth. If we want to go into price control, let us go into price control of every essential good in Nigeria.
Absolutely. Thank you. I like that. Thank you so much. I believe I also have Loma on standby. Thank you, Loma, for calling. Good evening. Loma, are you there?
Good evening.
Good evening, Loma. How are you? How is
I'm
Abia
fine.
State?
I'm fine. See, I want to let us know one thing. It will be suicidal for government to regulate rent in this country. First and foremost, price of cement, has it not skyrocketed? Is it not the government that made it to be so? All the building materials have all skyrocketed. You see that even people that are buying land, if you come to this side, you buy land, before you build, there's something we call matching ground.
Omonile.
The people will come with matching ground. You must make sure you pay them a huge amount of money, the community, before you start building. When the landlord calculate all these things, you now see the cost he uses in building is very high. So government should make sure they subsidize building materials. They should subsidize it and to make sure that the landlords go out and buy things cheaper. So
Absolutely.
that at the end of the day, if the landlords are now allocating the prices of rent, people will start protesting against it. But not when the, what do we call it?
The prices of things are expensive, and you are...
materials are high.
Yeah.
Somebody will subsidize. So I want the government to subsidize building material before we now start talking about
rent regulation.
Regulating
Thank you so much, Loma.
Thank you very much.
So I hear you, Loma, and I hear the first call. I believe his name was Kenneth, right? And that is what I was saying, that you see, building materials, the cost of land. I didn't even remember, Loma brought my attention to the Omonile. They call them, he says, backing ground in his own side. Even in some places, the bale of that place, before you even start to build. And again, at every point of building, I think at foundation, you pay a fee. At lintel level, you pay a fee. At roofing level, you pay a fee. Then if you are going up like this thing, at decking level, you pay a fee. All those things are, you know, on, what's it called? How do they call them? I don't know what kind of tax to call them, right? Undocumented taxes that these landlords must have to recoup. So it is a holistic, what's it called, solution that we must find. Because all of these things are just ridiculous. Because housing is a basic, what's it called, human rights, as far as I'm concerned in Nigeria. Is a basic thing that we must have. Everybody must be given the opportunity to have a decent shelter. Then we must intentionally find solutions. If the government floods the market with affordable housing, it will automatically crash the prices of rent. And the only way you can, get affordable housing is that both the labor, the building materials, the land, everything is affordable.
You remember when the president said that he wanted to bring down, take out, what's it called, custom duties on pharmaceuticals, like all our drugs and all of that. It's the same problem it's the same approach, rather, we need to put in the housing sector, right? What is making our cement expensive? Let us go and find that out. Can the government take it out? Yes. What is causing the steel, iron, and all of that to be expensive? Can it be taken out? Yes. Our granite, our sand, all those entire, what's it called? The entire ecosystem that helps to bring a house to life. What are those things? Can we bring down the prices? The answer is yes. Another solution would be that we need to start to enact tenant protection laws. I hear Loma and I hear Kenneth. However, a landlord, it is the height of wickedness for you to put a rent from 7 million to 14 million. That is wickedness. No matter the inflation, no matter the cost of, what's it called, no matter the cost of flight ticket or cost of food and all of that, it's ridiculous. Where do you expect the tenant to get it from? So we must have very strong tenant protection laws that could provide greater security and stability for the tenants without any, regulating rents. We have to be very clear. Hello? You're live. Who is that? Solomon.
Hello.
Okay, you're live. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello?
Go ahead, Solomon.
Yeah. Still on the government intervention in the house rent matter.
Go ahead, Solomon. Oh, sorry. I think we lost him, right? So, community land trust could also provide affordable options while also giving communities greater control over their land use. So, I mean, if you go to, let's say, I don't know what community I want to call now, there is, this is our government matter. Every time I talk about it, it just gives me a lot of headache. There are so many options that we can explore, right? You know, another thing is that it's not everybody that must live in Lagos. In all fairness and sincerity, if there was a train available, I will go and stay in Ibadan and be coming to work in Lagos. As long as I can time myself and I say that, you know what, in an hour, I will get to Lagos, finish my work, I can pick up the last train for the day and go back home. I'm fine. We do that when we travel outside of the country. There's someone I know, where he lives is about an hour, 20 minutes journey time every single day. By train. By bus. Then by train is about 30 minutes. And he does that entire routine without any stress. Why? Because the system allows it. Because yes, if the houses, we get it that urban areas and all of that, if the houses are going to be expensive here, no wahala. We can leave you, the landlord, and you're expensive, and we go to where we are going. And go and live there where we can afford. But look at the network, the road network. How accessible is it? Those are the key issues, the pertinent issues that we cannot answer. But let us bring it home, because some of those things are a bit foreign, right? In the Nigerian context, right, we have to examine the effectiveness of existing rent control laws in Nigeria. There's a Lagos rent control law. Is it fully enacted? Because I think I heard that rental allowance is about 20% rental allowance that is given. So if a landlord wants to increase your rent, it's supposed to be a percentage. So can we start as tenants start to ask, for those kind of things, so that it starts? Because again, this is why you see a lot of people end up in court and they now have all those long litigation cases, right? And again, if we want to say bringing it back home, considering the challenges of implementing rent regulation in informal settlements, we have to be clear. How do we go about and navigate those kind of informal structures? We have all those people. In fact, they tell you how much they pay daily just to go and get a bed space. When I heard that, I was alarmed. And it's not like it's a sanitized environment. It's not like it's a safe environment. And this is where Nigerians are living. So imagine if a government, they think. Do you understand? if a government was thinking, what do you think a government will do? Because these people already pay all those daily money or monthly money, and they pay to live inside slums. What is the government supposed to do? Are you not supposed to provide those housing and let them be paying that same amount? Why do we have a government if it is not to provide the basic necessities that we need as a people to survive? We have to be very intentional, right? Because, you know, over the years, right, we are actually a cultural and we are a very, very social community. So that community, you want to live with family, you know, and all of those things. So a lot of people might not be exposed to how the rental situation is until maybe one auntie somewhere, there's a fight somewhere, you have to move out and, you know, it's a rude shock. You know, so all of those kind of factors had kind of like, you know, calmed the situation where, you know, you are able to live with family for a period until you're able to find your feet. Maybe we should go back to that, because that can be another solution. It's just you have to find a way not to quarrel with your auntie. You have to find a way not to quarrel with your uncle. You have to find a way to be, you know, living in peace and contributing to the homes. Because if we had that, right, a lot of people would be able to stay in those properties without having to put their burden. You know, you're just a fresh graduate from the university. You're just starting off. You're earning. See, they're still even arguing on that 70-something thousand. I think it's 77,000 NYSC money. They've not yet paid in some states. I don't even know which states have paid now. So, I mean, maybe we should go back to that communal structure. That can be a very good solution, at least for the people that are just starting off in their lives and their careers. There used to be a time in this country where if you graduated, they gave you a brand new car. They gave you a key to a property, especially those in the military. But all those things, I don't know if they exist anymore. And it's not like the government cannot afford these things. We truly can afford it. It's just that we do not think it is important to give our citizens better life. I saw a video about Dubai one day, and I wanted to ask God, why you know let them bomb me for Dubai? Let me just be a citizen. You want to marry, you don't have money, they will give you money. You want to buy a house, you don't have money, they will give you the money to buy it. Even when you have a child and you want to name it, they pay for everything for their citizens. You must have love and empathy to be able to do that for your people. Right? So the question of whether the government should regulate rents in Nigeria is, of course, a complex and multifaceted question, right? While regulation may provide temporary relief to tenants struggling with high rent, it is not, of course, a panacea for the country's housing crisis. Nah. A more sustainable solution lies in what I have said, in addressing the underlying issues that is driving the crisis. So we must be intentional about closing that gap of housing shortages in Nigeria. We must provide adequate infrastructure. See what I said about, imagine if we had better transportation system. People don't need to live in urban areas, right? We must also be very clear on how to improve our land use policies. You know, so all of those things would add up in the end, you know, to bring down this cost, whether the landlord chooses to do it himself or not. Everything still lies in the hands of the government. Flood the market with cheap houses and allow people. Another final point I'd like to say is that we must wake up this ability for mortgage. So even if I'm a young copper and I just graduated and I'm earning 77,000, right, from the government, and let's say maybe my place of work, maybe another 50,000 or 70,000 to match it up. Let's just say they are paying the same amount. So give and take 77, you know, that's 180 something, right? Tell me, if I am able to pay a monthly rental, you know, I think it was Ambode that called it rent to own, right? That would be more decent, that I'm able to afford a mortgage at that early age. Things will change in this country if we're able to help ourselves to build better structures that can support good mortgage system in the country. So ultimately, a very balanced approach is what we need to solve this problem. Do we need regulations of these rentals? Of course we do. Landlords are overdoing it. But more importantly, we need to do some policy reforms. The government needs to invest heavily in flooding the market with affordable housing, help us improve on mortgage system that are single-digit loans, not the loans that want to choke us. With this few points of mine, because at this point I am tired, I hope I have made some sense in this conversation. And I hope somebody out there that is a government official will be thinking deeply. Housing, I'll go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is the most basic need any human being needs. So we need to be intentional about solving the housing challenge that we have. Shelter is at the base of the human need. It is not a luxury. All right, thank you so much to those that called us, and thank you for watching. And thank you for adding your voice to the conversation. I truly appreciate it when I hear people calling in to bring their own 2 cents into the conversation. Thank you so much. Yes, before I go, ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's at Official Upgrade TV. You can interact with us further, drop your points, drop your comments, share our videos, engage with our content online, invite your families and friends to watch and follow the conversation. If you missed the quote for today, you say regulations force people to do better. It's a simple thing. That is the main reason we need regulation. It will just force people to do things better. I'll see you guys tomorrow, 8 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, lives a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.